Hello, boys and girls, my book club friends. I'm coming to you today from a very special place. We'll see if you can guess. This person is a teacher in our school. This is where she lives. She is a first grade teacher. So Aries, you probably know where I'm going with this. She loves to garden, and if you look around her yard, she has got the most beautiful trees and flowers that I've ever seen. Now, I just want to turn around and let you see I'm standing in front of a really cool gazebo, and you're going to hear that wind chime all the way through our book club meeting today. And it may be louder than Miss Seal sometimes because it's windy out here. This is Miss Morgan's house. So if you guessed Miss Morgan, you're correct. And Miss Morgan is one of my dearest friends. And when she saw that I videoed from Heritage Park last week, she sent me a message and said that I was more than welcome to come and video from her yard as well. Because, you know, Wish Tree is a book that is helping us come closer to nature. And if you haven't gotten that from Wish Tree, I want you to get it now. That part of the reason we're reading this book is because it helps us appreciate nature and the world around us and the animals that depend on nature, the trees and the vegetation. And I want you to think about, while we're reading today and as you're reading this week for next week's assignment, what would the world look like if we didn't have trees and flowers and plants and even weeds? Or the little animals scurrying around. I've seen possums in my yard. I've seen squirrels. I haven't seen a raccoon yet. And I haven't seen a skunk, but I've seen them before. Just not in my particular house now. Think about how all of nature is connected together and how important they are to us. And that is part of the theme that is within Wish Tree. And so today, before we get started, I want to show you the picture of Aries. Here she is completing the scavenger hunt. Great picture. Thank you for sharing that with me. I love hearing from you. I heard from Aries last week. I heard from Eli. And I heard from Alice. And I was so excited to I hope you got my messages. I responded back to Alice and Eli on YouTube. And then Aries sent me messages through the Remind app. So I love hearing from you. I was able to talk to Aries for a little bit about her Easter traditions. I hope you talked with your family about family traditions. I'm going to give you another assignment today that I hope you will enjoy, that you can do with your family. But I love hearing from you. So send me questions. You can even send me comments about what you liked in particular about what we read. We'll have 3 more book club meetings after this one, and I'm kind of sad to see it go. I mean, I look about how little we have left to read. I've been just enjoying this book so much. This is probably my 3rd time reading it. So, and my husband read it. So, we love this book. So without further ado, we're going to talk about, Wish Tree. And I told you we find out how Wish Tree became the Wish Tree and got her first wish. So these are really important chapters because it tells the history of the Wish Tree. Now remember, Red is a couple hundred years old. I think she's about 230 years old. So that's a couple of centuries. And the tree has stayed in Francesca's family. Well, today I'm going to show you the connection and how the first owner is connected to Francesca. And then hopefully you can make connections with things in your family. Like the house that Miss Seal lives in. That house was purchased by my husband's grandparents. And when they passed away, we purchased the house from his mom, so that this house could stay in the family, because it's a very special house. And you hear the wind chimes, they're pretty noisy. So think about something in your family that has maybe been handed down. My husband also has some property over in Lee County, Virginia, and I read a book to you about a pond if you were on the Hillcrest website, and that's also a family treasure. And so think about, is there something in your family that's been passed down, like in Wishtree? And of course, it doesn't have to be a home, but you know, it could be a piece of jewelry. It could be a piece of furniture. A lot of people hand down furniture. I have my grandmother's dresser, and if I was willing to guess, I would say that dresser is well over 100 years old. And I have used it. I used it with my children, and now I'm using it in my bedroom. So it's really, really special to me. So talk about some of those things with your family. Some things that have been passed down. In chapter 31, we find out how the Wishtree got started. And it began in 1848 when Red was just, you know, about 20 years old. There was, at this time, there was a lot of immigrants coming to America. And I know you third graders should know what an immigrant is, because I taught third grade for many years. An immigrant is someone who has moved from another country. And of course, at this time, in the middle 1800s, in the middle of the 1800s, America was the place of opportunity, and people were trying their best to get here, and they were coming over on crowded boats and in really tough situations just to have an opportunity in the land of the free, because that was really appealing to people, and it's still appealing. People want to be here because we are the land of plenty, and we have so many freedoms that a lot of people don't have. So there was a time, like many other times, when hungry, desperate people sailed on crowded boats to settle here. Many of them ended up, as they always seem to, in my neighborhood. So Red, they're in his neighborhood, I'm going to say his or her, neighborhood, they would get their housing there. So they would live right there where Seymour is now. The blue and green houses were brown then and filled to overflowing with new arrivals. So these new people would come, and they would crowd in these houses because, you know, they didn't have jobs, so they had to do what they could. Sometimes the newcomers were welcomed, and sometimes they weren't. So we can make a connection there. Is Seymour welcomed in the neighborhood? Not really. Now, her and Stephen have formed a connection, but there are some people that don't want Seymour living there because they think she's different, because she's Muslim. And it was the same thing when in the beginning with Red. Some people didn't want these immigrants coming to America. They didn't want them here. Do we have that problem now in America? Sometimes we do. One of our new residents was a young Irish girl named Maeve. She had voyaged across the Atlantic with her 19-year-old brother, who died of dysentery during the trip. So the trip was so difficult that many people did get disease and died because they were in very close quarters, and it probably wasn't very sanitary. Their mother had passed away shortly after Maeve was born. Their father, when the children were 9 and 12. So here Maeve is, a 16-year-old girl, all alone. She's lost her mom, she's lost her dad, she's lost her brother. Maeve was solid and plain, but when she smiled, it was like sunshine peeking through clouds. She had a deep laugh, and her hair was as brilliantly red as my finest autumn attire. So in my mind, I'm picturing her hair like a tree in the fall that's got reds and oranges in it. So I imagine it was beautiful. And of course, my son over here, he's a redhead, so I'm a little partial to redheads. 16, alone, and penniless, Maeve shared a tiny room with 5 other immigrants. She worked night and day, cleaning and cooking and doing whatever she could to stay alive. Now, this next paragraph I'm going to read to you because it's a very important part of our story. Maeve soon discovered that she was gifted at caring for the sick. She had no special knowledge, no secret remedies, but she was kind and patient, and she knew how to soothe a fevered brow with a cool cloth as well as anyone. What she didn't know, she was willing to learn. So Maeve becomes the caregiver of these new immigrants that are coming to America. because a lot of them do not have money to see doctors. You know, it's expensive to go to the doctor, and when you've just moved to a new land and you're looking for work, you don't have money for that. And so she would take care of their animals, their children, anything that she could do to help these people. When she succeeded, and even when she didn't, patients and their families would leave small tokens for her: a whittled figure of a bird, a hairpin, half a loaf of bread. Once someone even left a leather-covered journal with a tiny silver key that opened its lock. When Maeve was out tending to someone who was sick, people took to leaving their thank yous in my lowest hollow. And of course, a hollow in a tree is almost like a part that has over time kind of been carved out, but not really carved. Like it's happened because of nature, and then you can put something in it. And usually, like, your owls will hide in the hollows of trees, or your squirrels will use them. But the people, to thank Maeve, would stick treasures or little gifts in there for her to get as thank you gifts, because they couldn't afford to pay her anything. That's when I realized that hollows can be a good thing for people, not just birds and animals. Little did I know just how good. So I wanted to talk to you a minute about, she got a journal as one of her gifts. And this is Mrs. Seal's journal. And if you don't keep a journal or a diary, I would encourage you to. Inside of my journal, I have written many happy things. There's probably some sad times in here. There's some unsure times. I'm sure I wrote in here about when I became the new school librarian and I was scared to death because I was hoping I knew what I was doing but wasn't sure. I love keeping a journal because I go back and I read about times in the past. It makes me realize how much I've grown and how I've learned from experiences. So I would encourage you to, and it doesn't have to be like this one. This one, it looks fancy, but it was actually really cheap. But you can get just a little, you know, ringed 25-cent composition book and write your thoughts in. And so Maeve kept a journal because that was a gift to her. And this journal plays a very important role in the book later. And if you finish the book, you know what I'm talking about. So as the years passed, of course, Maeve, she's the caregiver for everyone. And she kept the neighborhood connected. She was the one that people went to. No matter where people came from, Maeve cared for them as best she could. So she didn't discriminate. No matter where people came from, she was their friend and she took care of them. At this time, of course, Red is growing and more pliable and larger. And we meet another character, which becomes kind of a friend to Maeve, Squibbles, the squirrel. And Squibbles and Red become pretty worried about Maeve because they see how she sits and she just watches families and how they can tell that she's lonely. Often Maeve would sit at the base of my trunk and write in her journal, which, you know, we talked about how trees are important to us, and I've sat under a tree in my yard and written in my journal. Now and then she'd read passages aloud. She spoke about the Irish country fading into fog. She spoke about her family she'd lost. She spoke about her secret hopes and fears and longings. She had love to give and no one to give it to. Maeve adored early mornings when the world was bathed in myth and the sun was still a promise. She would lean against my trunk and close her eyes and hum a tune from her childhood. So her journal is giving her an opportunity to reminisce about where she came from and the family that she lost. And it's not just a sad time for her. It creates a very good, happy time for her as she reminisced. One day, the first day of May, Maeve joined me at dawn. To my surprise, she reached up to my lowest bough and gently tied a scrap of blue striped fabric into a careful knot. "I wish," she whispered, for someone to love with all my heart. That was my first wish and the beginning of many more. So I want you to think about Samar's wish, and let's compare it to Maeve's wish. Samar is wishing for a friend. And Maeve is wishing for someone to love. Do you think those are pretty similar? I think they are. I know for me, I love my friends. My friends are people that I love. But they both wanted to have a human connection. And I think, you know, how sad that she's so lonely that she doesn't feel loved. Do you think these people that she helped, do you think they made her feel appreciated? I think they really tried. But I think it was hard because she didn't have someone living with her and someone in her own home. And I think, you know, she didn't have family. Her family was gone. And they had died tragically. And so she's lonely. So Red and Squibble's thoughts about her were correct. They were right in being worried about her. Okay, so chapter 33. Let me move my paper here. I've got my little notes here. The wish that Maeve put on Red gets lots of attention, and people ask her what the scrap of paper says, and she tells them in a good-natured way. In other words, she just tells them very calmly, very nicely. Some of them understand, some of them don't, some of them make fun of her for it. But then some people, they try to take the wish down, and she gets really upset about that. She's like, don't you be touching my wish now. While it seems as if Maeve has put the wish on Red to ease a bit of her own loneliness, there may also be a part of her that believes in the magic of the wish tree. And we see that because she doesn't want people to take it down. How many of you have ever went to a wishing well where you had a little coin and you tossed it in? And, you know, your mom probably told you, no, don't tell anyone your wish if you want it to come true. I think part of us, because I've done that before too, I think part of us believes that that wish might really come true. How many of you, when you blow out your birthday candles, what do? Everyone says, make a wish. And you blow out your birthday candles, and in your head, you have what you want or what you want to happen. And in your heart, you believe that's going to happen. I've been there. Everyone I know has made wishes before. So Maeve, in her heart, is holding on to that hope that someone to love her, that's really going to happen. So on to chapter 34. Another year passed. As May neared, I found myself hosting more scraps of fabric than budding leaves. So other people start to make wishes. So as we see, this is the birth of the wish tree. Squibble tried to steal a few fabric strips to line his dray, the nest made of leaves and twigs high in one of my forked branches. I explained he'd have to stick with moss and pine needles until the 1st of May. Wishes, according to Maeve, could not be touched until after May Day. Then, the ones that weren't carried off in the wind or dragged to the ground by the rain could be destroyed by people or by enterprising squirrels. So Maeve was very stern in the fact of those wishes had to stay on there unless the wind took them off, then that was fine, or if it rained and they fell off. But they could not be taken off by the animals or other people. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so then at the end, just before dawn on the 1st day of May, a young woman approached me. She had dark, wavy hair and wore a tattered gray coat. In her arms was wrapped a bundle. Psst, Squibbles whispered to me, "Here comes another wish, Red." But Squibbles was wrong. There was no wish. Swiftly, but with great care, the girl placed her bundle in my hollow. So, a gift for Maeve. A thank you for Maeve, I realized. A loaf of bread, perhaps. The girl had probably been one of her patients. She was gone as quickly as she come. Like a hummingbird, I thought. There. Then not there. Like a gust of wind. And in chapter 35, I'm going to read that to you because it's very important to our book. Just a few minutes later, Maeve opened the door of the little brown house. She smiled at me and at the scraps waving in the early morning breeze. And then came the cry. And we know what cries. Wail was more like it. Coming from me. Not the meek peep of a wren chick. Not the shy squeak of a mouse pup. This was a cry of righteous indignation. This was a baby. So the book is getting so good, and we know that the baby is a gift left for Maeve to love. And this baby becomes Francesca's mother. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and make that connection for you. So that would make Maeve Francesca's grandmother. Okay, so I want to make sure, let's see. So Maeve is given this beautiful gift of love. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you the baby's name is Amadora, which meant the gift of love. And so Maeve is Francesca's grandmother. So you see that connection? So the baby in the hollow is Francesca's mom. And this is the journey of the wish tree. And so my assignment for you today is to talk about your family connections again. Maybe talk to your grandparents. If you have a great grandparents alive, have them tell you some stories. And writing these things down in journals so you don't forget is very important. As you get older, you realize your memory is not as good anymore. So when you're young, write down special things. What your assignment is, and I will take a picture of this and send it to you on the Remind app, is I want you to write down 3 wishes, and I want you to tell me why you have those 3 wishes. And you can share those with me, and we will talk about them on the next video. But I want you to think about wishes that would make the world a better place. So I don't want wishes like, I want a new 4-wheeler, okay? Or I want a new Nintendo whatever. I don't even know what the latest model is. I want wishes that would make the world better. For me right now, my wish would probably be that there would be no such thing as the coronavirus, okay? So we could all go back to normal and do things the way we'd like to. That would be my first wish. I would also wish for world peace. I would wish that no one would ever be hungry. The list could go on how I think the world could be a better place. I wish people would read their 20 minutes every night, because I do know that reading makes the world a better place. So that's your assignment tonight. And like I said, or this next week, I will take a picture of it and send it to the Remind app so that your parents can see it and you can write it down. Maybe that could be something you start in a journal. So as we leave, boys and girls, I just want to send you a happy message. I want to show you my t-shirt. It says, I love reading. I've got my favorite Hungry Caterpillar earrings on. I do love reading so much, and I hope that you are enjoying this time to read some really good books. Right now, you can read whatever you want. It's a great time to take that opportunity. I'm gonna give you another little peek. Hey Trainer, you want to come say hi? Come on. Trainer, I think, might want to come say hi to you. Give you another little peek. I'm gonna walk here around Miss Morgan's yard. Come here, let him say hi to you. No, he's gonna run. So here's her beautiful garden that she's let us. There's her house, her pretty pink house. So Have a great, happy week, boys and girls, and just enjoy reading. And I look forward to coming to you again. Who knows where I'll come to you from next time? Maybe I'll come back here again because this is a really nice, peaceful place. I love you so much. Bye-bye.